Okay, everyone, welcome to day 5 slash part 5 of your purple packet. So, I left you off saying that you should be trying to do these ones, and if you did everything correctly, again, the key is posted, but here are your answers. I know they're super corny. I did not make them up, but hope you enjoyed. So, moving down here to our next page, this is just an instructional page, but it's a really, really important page. It has everything written out that you could possibly need. So now we're getting into when we have variables on both sides of your equal sign. So looking at our number 1 here, we have 12k plus 15 is equal to 35 plus 2k. So we always want to keep these together again, just like we did last time, but we want to combine those hearts, just like you did in your green and pink packets. We're just combining like terms now. So to get that 2k to the other side, we subtracted it, and that resulted in 10k. 12k minus 2k gave us 10k, and then they kept their numbers, and then they simplified it even further. Since we had variables on just one side of the equation, we now wanted to get the constant numbers on the other side. So that's why they subtracted these 15s over here. And again, we get 10k is equal to 20. Keep going, solve for k. We should get k equals 2. So these can be overwhelming at first, but the more you practice them, a lot easier they get, okay? Now the one thing, and it always says solution, remember to check your answer. And the way you can check your answer, before I move on to this next one, all we could do is plug what we got for k back into our original equation and make sure it checks out. So we could have done 12 times 2 plus 15, and if we do that, we get 39, and then we can do this on the other side as well, so 35 plus 2 times 2, and we do get 39. So they're both equal. We know we did it correctly. Now for this next one, we also have something called the distributive property again. So I briefly mentioned it. I think it was in the pink packet if I remember correctly, but this is going to come into play a lot. So looking at our example here, I always like to draw in my arrows. You do not need to do that, but it might help you. So remember, that means my first arrow that I drew was 3 times a, and then we also have to do 3 times 22, and that's where that 66 comes from. So once you have everything as simple as you can get on both sides, that's when you actually start moving the variables over. So technically speaking, they moved the 3a over to the right. You could have done minus 12a and minus 12a, but then you'd be dealing with a negative 9a on one side. So it's always better, you don't necessarily need to do this, but it's always better to subtract over so you have a positive variable. Again, you do not need to, but it might make your lives a lot easier. So once they did that, they got 9a here, and then we had to get our couple, if you want to call it that, our variable term by itself again, so we subtracted 30 on both sides and followed through to get our a equals 4. So same idea for that next problem there. I will let you guys go ahead and look over that yourself, but I will do a couple of examples here with us to start. So we have, for number 4, we have 5x is equal to 7x plus 6. So again, we have 2 options. We could either add 7x on both sides, which is what I recommend you do, and we would get 12x is equal to 6. Or over here, I'll just rewrite it so we can see the other way as well. I could have technically subtracted 5x over, and I would get 0 is equal to negative 12x plus 6, but then I'd have to worry about moving that 6 back over and solving, so it just gets a little bit more complicated. So again, I would not do this, but you can technically. It won't be wrong if you do it the right way. So anyways, back to over here, we have 12x is equal to 6. We want to solve for our x, so we're going to divide both sides by 12. And we get x is equal to 6 over 12, or again, we should be able to easily see that one simplifies to 1/2. Okay? All right. And let's do number 5 together. We have 7 minus 4x is equal to x minus 4 times the quantity of 2 plus x. So remember, first we have to do our distributive property. We have to simplify both sides. So one thing to be careful of here, we have a negative 4 technically, not a positive 4, a negative 4. So I'm going to rewrite my left side because I haven't done anything with that. Now, negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. And then negative 4 times x is minus 4x. So you have to be so careful about these signs. If there's a negative sign out front, in front of that number, you have to make sure you distribute that whole entire thing, not just the positive number. So now that we have that, we can simplify our right side a tiny bit. We can combine some like terms. So we get 7 minus 4x still on our left, and we get x, and here I'll put it in color here, x and negative 4x. We can combine those, and we would get negative 3x. Hopefully you all see that there. And now we still have our minus 8. So now that we have all of that simplified as much as we possibly can, that's when we start combining that's when we start moving our variables to one side and moving our numbers to another. So I'm going to personally choose to do plus 4x, but again, you could have done plus 3x on both sides, but you would have a negative variable. So if I do that, I get 7 is equal to just an x minus 8. Remember, negative 3 plus 4x just results in 1x. And then again, to finish up my problem, how do I undo subtracting by 8 on that side? I add by 8 on both sides. So I should get 15 is equal to x here. 15. All right, I will do the next two as well, and then I will set you free for the last page here. Again, this is the last page, these numbers 1 through 20, that I'm going to have you upload as an assignment, just for completion, just to see where you're at. And again, you do have your key available to you, so make sure you check your answers. If you do upload your work before checking your key, that's more than fine since it's just completion. Just make sure you do take the time to eventually check your answers. So back up here to number 6, we have 8 times 4x and 8 times negative 5. We have to use that distributive property again. So I'll just shorten it, dist. So 8 times 4x, that's 32x. And 8 times, remember we have that negative there, so 8 times negative 5 is negative 40. So we have that is equal to our right side, which hasn't changed yet. And now we are ready to combine our terms. So again, I'm going to start by subtracting 32x on both sides, so I get a positive number for my x. Again, I know I keep repeating myself, but you could have done it the other way as well. So we would get negative 40 is equal to 37x minus 32x is 5x and minus 30. So again, I want to get that 5x by itself. So I'm going to add 30 to both sides to undo subtracting it. And I get negative 40 plus 30, that's negative 10. Remember, my negative 40, that's my bigger number, that's negative. So I should get a negative answer. And that is equal to my 5x. And then again, to undo multiplying that x by 5, I'm going to divide. And I do get negative 2 is equal to x. All right, one more here, and then I will set you free. So we have another distributive property problem, and you notice we actually have the distributive property on both sides. So my first step is going to be my left side, so negative 2 times 3x is negative 6x. Negative 2 times positive 5 is negative 10. And then same idea over here on my right side. I have 2 times x would just give me 2x, and 2 times 3 would give me positive 6, so plus 6. And again, now that we have this set up, it's simplified on both sides, we are able to combine our terms. So again, I'm going to, if I were to subtract 2x, I would get a negative number for my x. So I'm going to add my 6x instead. And I get negative 10 left over here on my left side is equal to 8x plus 6. And if I go ahead and subtract my 6 over to both sides, since that 8x has to stay together, I get negative 16 is equal to 8x. And finally, to solve for x, I'm going to divide both sides by 8 here. And negative 16 divided by 8 gives me negative 2. And I do get my x to be negative 2. So again, remember, in the very beginning, it said to check your answers. You can always recheck your answers by just plugging in your number that you get for your variable and check to make sure you get the same thing on both sides of your equal sign. All right, so that concludes all of the videos I have for you on this packet. Again, like I mentioned before, make sure you do this last page, numbers 1 through 20, and upload a picture or a scanned document of this on your assignment. Thank you very much.